I got stuff for you.
Holy moly. I need to get some snakes and release them around my house.
But they love eating people. They love eating kids.
These guys are the scientists of the supernatural, lecturers leaving lessons for inquiring laymen. They are applying the scientific method to a world that baffles science. They are the cryptids of the corn.
Every day that you open your mouth,
I know, right?
I'm more convinced that you're abducted by aliens.
No.
And it just stood up. I mean, it just like kept going and going. And she goes, what the?
These are idiots.
I was laughing reading this because I already knew how you would feel.
Idiot. What part of the story fits your balloon?
Well,
This isn't a UFO. But who else has big black wings and red eyes?
Batman.
Well, Mothman.
Oh yeah, Mothman.
Well, everyone, I think we know exactly what it is. So say it all with me. It was the sandhill crane.
Would you try it?
No.
You wouldn't eat it?
No.
Why?
Because they're probably toxic. There'd be a lot of poop in my pants. I've seen a 6-foot alligator go swinging through the air and slam into a tree. Hello, and welcome back to Cryptids of the Corn podcast. I am the great and powerful Mystery.
And I am J Clone 1.
One,
Yes. The first one.
21 guns.
No, we're not that.
Oh, okay. But today we're joined by an amazing special guest. One that you've talked about for a long, long time. You guys were just talking about stuff a little bit beforehand. But even like when we first started doing this stuff, you were talking about Randy's property in the book and all that stuff. And so it's just weird how much life comes full circle.
Right, I know, right?
Now having relationships with these people and stuff like that. But I'm going to let you do the intro. I'm super excited to hear his stories, to talk about his book, and all endeavors past and future.
Alrighty. Well, we will be joined today by an author and a guest or a vendor at the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree 2 coming up. The author that I've talked about, the book of Randy's property, and Randy will be our speaker at Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree 2, one of our featured speakers. But the author of the book that's about his property that I spoke so much about, author Mike Quast. Welcome, Mike.
Welcome, yay!
Hi.
And I did say your last name right, correct?
Quast.
Quast? Which one is it?
Quast.
Quast, okay.
Randy lied to us.
Yeah, Randy lied to me. Or I think that's what he said at least. So Quast.
Randy talks so fast anyways.
Oh, I know. You got to pay very close attention to keep up. But yes, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here.
Can you give us just a little intro about, I guess, yourself and what got you into Bigfoot and into writing and why we're here today?
Well, ever since I was a little kid, I've just been kind of naturally into every paranormal thing under the sun. But I guess it was when I had my own Bigfoot sighting at 8 years old that pretty much cemented that was going to be my main focus. And that's when I was on a Sunday drive with my family at a place called Strawberry Lake in Minnesota. And for some reason, I was the only one in the car that saw this from my position in the back seat, but about 150 yards ahead of us. There was about a 7 or 8 foot tall black object that I first thought was a burned and blackened tree trunk until it suddenly just walked away from the edge of the road into the trees on 2 legs. I didn't see any arms, but I had it in sight for about 10 seconds. And the only thing I could think of was that it was a Bigfoot because I knew that bears don't walk on 2 legs normally. And in retrospect, I thought, well, if that was somebody in a costume trying to scare us, he didn't let us get that good of a look at him. So I was so shocked by it, I didn't even say anything at the time to my family, but we've talked about it since, and they didn't see it. And I've been told by some Native Americans that I was the only one meant to see it and that it was invisible to everybody else. I don't know what to think about that, but that's really what got me started into the Bigfoot field. And I just read everything I could get my hands on after that. And I knew once I was out of high school I was going to want to become a serious researcher. And so in 1987, the year after I graduated, that's when I started just traveling all around the state and meeting other witnesses. I've always been a natural writer too. When I was little, I used to write stories and comics and stuff like that. So it seemed a natural thing to start writing books on Bigfoot, which I was self-published at first. I did several books by myself, just advertised them myself and sold them through the mail. And then just a few years ago, once I was involved at Randy's property, I got to know Doug Hychek, who's a TV producer who he used to produce Monster Quest for the Discovery Channel. And a few years ago, he decided to get into the publishing business, and he offered to pay for my books to be done up in professional versions. So I get to be an actual published author now, and it's been a lot of fun. And Randy's case is something I got into at the tail end of 2019. I heard about it from a researcher named Brent Herring from the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. He just told me, hey, there's this property up north of Bemidji, or the little town of Black Duck, it's been having continuous Bigfoot activity for a few years now, and thought you might want to check it out because you're a little closer than I am. Even though it's still a 3-hour drive for me to get there from where I live in Moorhead, which is a sister city right next to Fargo, North Dakota. Well, I've lost count of how many times I've been up there now, and it is just constant activity. It's the most intense case I've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely reading your book, I was shocked at just like every time someone visits his property, something happens one way or another, or he will ask them to give someone an experience, and they do it. They listen.
Yeah, that's one of the weirdest things about it. He goes out into the woods all the time and just talks out loud to them and assumes that they can hear him and understand him. And he'll ask them to do things like, hey, if you want to come up and pound on my house tonight, feel free. And then they'll do it. Stuff like, hey, how about if he'll be on a trail and he'll say, how about if you guys lay some branches across this trail so it's hard for me to get by them? And then the next day, the branches are there.
Yeah. That's wild. That's like no case we've really ever, I guess, been close to at all before.
TJ's is the only one that comes to mind.
That's even remotely close.
And it's just because he talks
to everything.
Well, to the Bigfoot or whatever's back there, and they do
some
react.
Stuff. Yeah, it definitely react. Yeah,
whatever Bigfoot is, and that's a loaded question.
Speaking of Randy and your experience when you said you were meant to see the Bigfoot.
I have that written down too.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because Randy also mentioned a time when he was on his property and people were smelling stuff and he couldn't smell it at all. And he's basically describing them putting that smell in their brains or in their heads. And that's why he didn't smell it. Like they were meant to smell it, but not him.
Yeah, when it comes to sounds, though, as far as my experience, it seems like anytime I've been there, when there's been a sound in the distance, everybody who's there can hear it.
Oh, yeah.
As far as I can tell.
I just didn't know if that was like a relatable thing where they can only show themselves to certain people, or maybe
they only want to.
Yeah, or they want certain people to only smell certain things, like similar behavior, I guess. And two, being up in Minnesota, were you a kid in Minnesota? Was that Minnesota when you saw the tree stump looking Bigfoot that walked off?
Yeah, that was Minnesota.
Have you heard of the walking trees in Minnesota?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Actual walking trees? No, I don't think so.
Well, yes, no. We've had people on the show, and some of the tribes people even up there. We've done some research where they've witnessed what they thought were dead trees, like branchless, like you're describing, tree stumps or tree trunks, no tops on them, getting up and walking away.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was a wild,
like
similarity.
I can't believe I forgot.
Well, that was like season 2 or something.
Johnny.
That. Yeah. Because I remember driving up there after we did that episode, and I'm like looking off the highway.
Yeah, because Johnny
just
and his
waiting
wife
for a tree to move or something. I think that was our was at our not freaky fauna, but living plants episode.
Inspired living plants.
Okay,
Or
gotcha.
cryptid plants.
Cryptid plants. That's
All
what
plants
it was.
are living.
Yeah, I just thought that was a funny similarity because you're also in Minnesota. But we've heard other accounts where people described them similar to what you've said.
Yeah, looking
like a big
yeah,
old burnt tree stump. Yeah,
being so big and being a part of the environment, it makes you invisible.
right.
I mean,
yeah.
we've talked about that with everything from crocodilians to polar bears to hippos to even pigs, like putting the quarter in to see the world's biggest pig,
Right.
and you don't even realize it's in the pen because it's the whole pen.
The whole pen is the pig.
It just looks like a big pink tarp.
Right. Yeah.
But there is camouflage in that, being that big, but you look like a chunk of the environment.
Right. Yep.
Crocodilians is probably the best example of being 20 feet long and people walking right across you.
Thinking you're a log.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Well, Randy thinks that they're a paranormal type of creature, not just a flesh and blood animal, and that they can, teleport in and out, that they're not from this world, and that he claims to have seen a couple of them just vanish into thin air right in front of his eyes. So if they can do that, they wouldn't really have to worry about camouflage.
Right. Absolutely. And I think Randy has such a special case on his property because we've been doing this for almost 4 years now, right?
The podcast, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Bigfoot Society for a year before that.
Yeah. So just researching it for a while, we kind of think Bigfoot falls under an umbrella of many things. I get the term Bigfoot, where it could be something flesh and blood and then something completely on the other end that's completely paranormal, but they all both fall under a Bigfoot umbrella. And it's almost like Randy's spot has something that's like could fall under both or something, or even something else entirely in between. I don't know what it is. I just think his property's special.
I don't know what it is, but when I first met him, I was pretty much part of the flesh and blood camp. Because when you're looking for something like Bigfoot, it's hard enough trying to find it and prove that it exists if it is flesh and blood without bringing in a supernatural element.
Hey,
You don't want to hear that. You don't
No.
want to hear that if you actually get your hands on it, that it can just vanish.
It's just going to melt.
right.
But I've gotten to know Randy good enough now, I think, that I know for sure 100% he's not making this stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a liar. And so it's been hard to wrap my mind around some of the things that he reports seeing and experiencing, but I'm still in the process of it, I guess.
Right.
But
I have a similar feeling like with Randy. I believe him, but it's so much stuff that it blows my mind sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Like he
But-
posts stuff on Facebook.
I was
and
going to
his
say,
wife.
but then he sends you a mountain full of evidence.
No, yeah. Then
to,
here's a video of this
everything-
shadow going across my yard.
everything he just said.
Like, yeah, there is a video of a shadow going across your yard.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got it all.
But yeah, and Jay was alluding to earlier. I worked, looking for endangered and extirpated species, which for everybody at home just means locally extinct. I went and looked for animals that the government said did not exist anymore, and we found them. But it was, hundreds of man hours, 16-hour days, looking for a fish the size of your finger in creeks, with tons of technology and all that stuff, and eDNA testing. And we were looking for them. It still took, out of the whole survey, we only found them at 2 sites out of probably 200. So probably 16 weeks altogether looking for this little fish.
But you found him.
Yeah.
They were there.
Yeah.
I do too about the whole Bigfoot phenomena. It makes you, I think why I'm so drawn to it. It just shows you that there's more to the world than what we're led to believe or what we were taught, especially in school. There's just so much more to the world. And I like that aspect of it. Because then with all the Bigfoot stories, just like with Randy, I 100% believe everything Randy's telling me. And we've interviewed so many people about it. And you can tell, kind of when people are either just embellishing stories
fisherman's
right, or just even plain old just making them up or something. But you can tell when someone's being authentic and just real with you. And some of their stories are just, you wouldn't believe it if you didn't hear 10 other people tell something of the very similar experience. But it's so crazy and supernatural. But now it's just like nothing's off the table anymore.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And the number of sightings so far, it's like 36, 37, somewhere in there, by over 20 separate witnesses.
Mm-hmm. And that's Class A sightings. He's talking
Where?
on Randy's property.
Oh, on Randy's property. Okay.
Yep. Class A sightings. And so we're not even talking Class B or even Class C. You'd be in the
crazy.
hundreds, probably more than that even, I'd say. Which class, Class B is hearing something or seeing some sort of evidence, but not physically actually seeing a creature. And then Class C is like, my neighbor saw something and told me about it.
My neighbor's cousin John was told by his friend at the gas station that Bigfoot smokes Marlboro.
He's probably right.
Now, we've heard those stories too.
There's been several times when multiple people have been present hearing noises out in the woods, and Randy is standing right there. So he's not out there hoaxing it. If it was a hoax, he'd have to hire people to run around and do all this stuff and hope that they didn't get shot, because some people carry guns when they go there.
Absolutely.
Gosh. Yeah. People.
Randy carries one himself, just, in case he runs into a bear.
I'm glad you said that, because I can't tell you how many people think that, like, not just Randy, but properties and people that have stuff on their properties, it's just a guy out there in a costume.
Right, gosh.
You did that. I mean, you guys, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois.
You're going to get shot.
If you're walking around somebody's yard or in their woods in a fur suit, you're going to get shot, because half the time, if you weren't wearing anything, you were going to get shot.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone if you're dressed up like a Bigfoot.
Well, especially how where his property is. It's pretty remote. Right. It's very rural. Yeah.
Right. And
just like around here, really.
Well, yeah. I remember my dad talking to a few men with firearms, because we had a half a mile long driveway.
Yeah.
And they were back in our property.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone, he didn't shoot directly at a Bigfoot, but he shot up in the trees.
Above one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And I'll reiterate again that I believe Randy. I believe his stories. I believe his encounters. I don't know what he's experiencing. That's a different question for me, at least. But I believe he's experiencing all this stuff.
Do you want to share your first experience with an encounter on Randy's property?
My first visit there was in December of 2019. And, on the TV show Finding Bigfoot, like everybody else, I had seen them, doing howls and banging on trees to try and communicate with the Bigfoots. And so I never really did the howling, but I'd done a lot of wood knocks in different areas and never got an answer. But the first time I ever heard a wood knock was on that very first visit to Randy's. He was just taking me on a hike around the property in the adjoining state land, and we're out there in the middle of just this thick forest, and all of a sudden, 100 feet away or so, we hear this bang, just one. And we stopped our conversation, and Randy said, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "Yes, I did." So technically, my first experience there would have been that. And that was all that happened on that visit. But then after that, I started hearing what other people were talking about. All kinds of noises that they would make at night, imitating other kinds of animals, like an elk call or horse whinny, or even what sounds like human speech being mimicked. Both male and female voices have been heard, as well as like kids' voices, like children laughing and playing.
Oh, okay. That's not good. Or at least,
and what sounds like just the Bigfoots talking to each other in what must be their own language, because you can't make out what they're saying.
Is that like would you describe that as like the samurai chatter? Did it sound like that?
Yeah, like from the Sierra sounds?
Yep.
Randy says what he's heard it right outside his bedroom window at 4 a.m. He said it sounds exactly like the Sierra sounds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What I've heard is just more shorter little clips of just what sounds like two beings calling out to each other for a few seconds. And first time I heard that, I thought that it was just people out in the woods, and told Randy the next morning, and he said, no, there was nobody out there.
It's those guys in the suits screwing around, you know?
I guess so.
That's crazy. He was, oh, yeah. No, that's, so, but you eventually did have a sighting, though, correct?
Just this month,
Wow.
was staying there on the night of June 6th, which is D-Day. So it would have been nice to say that I had a sighting on D-Day, but it happened after midnight, so technically it was the 7th.
It's still,
Um,
I still say it's the same till the sun comes up.
Okay. I was out there by Randy's campfire area with him and his stepson who lives with him and a couple of other friends that were visiting. And we were just sitting there talking and listening and heard some owls and things like that, but nothing Bigfootish was really happening. And got to be late at night. And Randy and his stepson went, well, Randy, no, he has some chairs and a couch by the fire, and he said he was going to sleep on the couch that night or just try and sit up and stay awake as long as he could. But his stepson went back to the house, and the other people that were there, one was camping and the other one left. And then I went to go get settled down in my tent, which was 150 yards or so from the campfire area, in a different area from where the other person was camping. And I just messed around for a while, getting the tent ready, and finally got into the tent, got it zipped up, and then I was, making a little more commotion in there as I got into my sleeping bag and stuff. I finally got settled down and started trying to fall asleep. And a few minutes, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes after that, it's hard to say, I'm trying to fall asleep. My eyes are kind of sporadically open and closed. And they happen to be open when something started approaching the front of my tent. I could see it as a silhouette. And at first I was like, okay, am I really seeing this? And I just kept watching, and it came closer and closer and said, yes, I'm really seeing this. And it looked like a head and shoulders. I was seeing it at first from about here up. And it came right up to the tent and pressed its face against the door of the tent. And it was backlit by this really bright 3/4 moon. It was unusually bright that night. And there's mosquito netting on my tent, so under those lighting conditions, I could see it really clearly, but only as a solid black silhouette. And I was just kind of staring back at it, just marveling at it. And while I was doing that, its two giant hands came up on either side of its head, and they pressed against the tent. And I have pretty big hands, but these were at least an inch longer and wider than mine. But the head itself just seemed to be, it wasn't a pointed head. I didn't see red eyes or anything. It just seemed like a human-like head about the size of mine. And for about the first minute, I just laid there, just going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, freaking out more or less. And then I started to think a little more clearly, and I said, okay, you've been waiting for this for how many decades? Don't just lay here and waste this. Do something. Anything you can think of. And I'm friends. I don't know if you know about this all-female Bigfooting group called the She Squatchers.
Mm-hmm. We know of them.
And their leader is Jen Cruz, and she's part Ojibwa. And she had told me that the Ojibwa's name for Bigfoot is Gichi Sabe. And I'd been wondering for a while, if I see another one, what if I said that out loud to it? I wonder if I'd get a reaction. So that's what I decided to do. While I was still laying there on my back, I just said, Gichi Sabe. And it just continued to stand there and stare at me. Actually, I think it was probably down on its knees because my tent is pretty short. And I said it twice more and still didn't get a reaction. So then I sat up and leaned forward a little bit. So I'm literally just inches from this thing's face. Just closer than I thought I would ever get, that's for sure.
With a net between you two.
What's that?
With a net between you two.
Yeah. And I was just kind of, what do I do now? So what I ended up saying was, do you want to say something? I can see you. And still nothing. I just sat there for a few minutes. I think the whole thing might have taken as much as 5 minutes. Somewhere from 3.5 to 5 anyway. Finally, I got the idea. Do I dare and reach up to try and touch one of these things' hands? So I reached out with my right hand to touch its left hand. But when I touched the tent, it was like there was nothing there. So I think what probably happened is it saw me doing that and it pulled back and was like, no, don't touch me. And then I still was just sitting there staring back at it, and I started to think about conversations I'd had with Randy about other people who had camped there and heard stuff outside their tent, but been too scared to open it and to try and get a look at what was going on. And Randy always kind of thought how ridiculous it is to come looking for something, and then when you find it, to be so scared of it that you're afraid to look at it. So I finally just kind of had this moment where I said, to hell with it, I'm opening this tent. So I had to look away from it for a few seconds to fumble with the zippers. And by the time I got it open, it probably only took about 10 seconds to get it open and throw the flap open and look out with my flashlight. And by then, of course, there was nothing there. I think in those 10 seconds, it either vanished like Randy says they can do, or it would have, in 10 seconds, it could have easily walked away and into the woods and out of sight. But that was the second sighting of my life, and I'm 57 years old. So
Yeah, it's pretty intense sighting, I would say.
pretty monumental event.
Oh, no. Hold on a second. We're still Bluetooth that, dang it. Gerald. It was Gerald. Sorry, I got a phone call. All right, I turned that off. Sorry about that. I unbluetoothed it too. Okay.
First off, amazing. Like,
Yeah,
then,
that's a pretty
right-
intense sighting.
Right away, I decided I got to go tell Randy about this right now.
Yeah.
I took my red flashlight. That's one of the few rules he has at his place. He wants people to use red flashlights instead of white light because I guess it's kind of somewhat known among outdoorsy people that red light doesn't bother animals as much as white light does. So I made my way over to the fire ring where he was still on the couch, and he was still awake. He had been nodding off a little bit, but now he was awake again. And I told him what happened. Well, first I said, okay, something just happened, and I need to make sure it wasn't somebody doing a practical joke on me. Right away he said, no, not me, because I never do that. If I do that even one time to somebody, my credibility goes out the window.
gone.
So I just told him what happened, and I was like, oh, look at me, I'm shaking. And he said, yeah, when I saw your flashlight coming, I could already tell you were shaking.
Just the shaky beam of light coming.
But we just talked for about an hour, and then I needed to try and get some rest that night because I wanted to get up early. So I finally went back to the tent, and he said he would walk with me. And then I guess he decided to go back to the house instead of back to the fire. But yeah, that's pretty much the story.
Yeah, that's an intense story, and I can't believe like how safe. I imagine if you weren't in a tent and that thing were to walk and get that close to you, you wouldn't get that close to its face. But the safety net of a literal net in between you two, is enough to
Some Walmart plastic fabric.
You feel safe enough to be inches from its face. That's just wild to me.
And people have said to me, okay, where's the pictures? And I had my phone literally right next to me, but
It's the last thing you think of doing.
I'd like to say, well, if I had tried to take pictures under that lighting, I don't think it would have shown much of anything. But the truth is, I didn't even think to grab the camera and try. And
Nobody.
that happens to people quite a bit.
I mean, we talk about on our show with. I've seen elk and mountain lion. I have no pictures of them because
Black bear.
Black bear. Because when I'm seeing them, I'm looking at them, and then I walk away or go the other way or whatever.
Well, that you're trying not to get hurt.
Right. Well,
you're on high alert, like watching this thing.
Elk and the mountain lion were both like, yeah, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't ever think about nobody thinks about taking pictures for any of that stuff, let alone Bigfoot. Mm-hmm. It's not the front of our mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's.
I'd had one other super close range experience there a few years before. Randy used to have a guest trailer just about 100 feet from his house. He just got rid of it recently, but I was spending a night in there one night because I knew these things had walked right through his yard, so I was just in the trailer watching out the window for several hours. And then there was no furniture in there, but I had my sleeping bag and I was just going to sleep in one of the back bedrooms. So I think it was after 3 a.m. I finally laid out my sleeping bag. And as I was doing that, I heard the soft little scrape against the wall outside that bedroom. And I just kind of went, what the heck was that? And there was no window in that room. So I went to the next room where there was one and I looked out, but all I saw was pitch black. And I should have gone outside and looked around, but I was tired. So I went to sleep. And the next morning when me and Randy went back there to look, there were these white finger marks along the wall. About 3 feet, and there were 7 fingers. It looked like 4 from one hand and 3 from the other. And the hands were gigantic, like the size of baseball gloves.
Oh, awesome.
And that was a night when a lot of people were there. There was a group called the SRA, the Sasquatch Research Association. They were visiting the place. And in the days prior, Randy had been walking around talking to the Bigfoots like he always does and telling them, hey, you guys, I got some friends coming. They're okay. They just want to learn about you. So why don't you make sure you give them a good show? And literally every single person that was there that night had some kind of experience, including there was a guy who had 2 sightings, one in the daytime and one that night. And the nighttime one was really close to that guest trailer. And just hearing that scrape along the wall, that was what I had happen. And so that meant that from where I was standing with my sleeping bag, I had a Bigfoot about 8 feet away from me. But now I've been just inches from one. So
right, yeah, it's a little closer.
Yeah,
you one-upped it.
Yeah, so it's hard to get any closer than 10 inches.
Yeah, you feel it breathing on you. I think you wrote that about some of that in this book, Your High Strangeness at a Northern Homestead, Minnesota. Or Minnesota homestead. We talked to the alien. His name's the alien hunter Daryl Sims.
Oh, Daryl, yeah.
And he talks, and he's done a lot of investigations with like cattle mutilations, and what's it called? Why am I blanking on the surgery in the surgeries?
Oh, the
foreign or out of
the alien object the implants.
Yeah, like alien implant surgeries around the world. They call him in to oversee the surgeries and the removals of some of these objects. And he talked about in like the cattle mutilation cases, underneath the animal.
Before you say it,
yeah,
so the white finger marks on the building, were they like oily or were they powdery? What kind of what was leaving the white finger marks behind?
Randy thinks it's some kind of oil that they have on their skin. He's seen white marks on his house and on trail cameras that have been messed with. And like I had a experience once with a little experiment that I was trying. I put some 12-inch square sections of mirror in some trees. I thought that might get the Bigfoot's attention. And I had a trail camera pointed right at one of the mirrors. And the next time I came to check the site, Randy told me, well, something happened at your site, but you're not going to like it.
Uh-oh.
Gosh.
And all of my mirrors were on the ground. The one that the camera had been pointed at was shattered, like something had stomped on it. And the camera itself was turned sideways on the tree, smeared all over with mud. and it had some of those white fingerprints on it. And Randy has also had cameras up. He doesn't put cameras up anymore, but when this was new to him, he was trying to get pictures, and he's had white fingerprints all over his cameras, and without the camera managing to get a picture of what did it.
I'm curious if the white.
So continue with what you were saying.
If it's so, Daryl would find in the authentic accounts of like a mutilation of an animal, he would find the white substance underneath the body, and he found out it was magnesium carbonate. Right? Was that it? Yeah, magnesium carbonate, which is a common.
You can go to Lowe's and buy it.
Right, material. It's like the chalk like weightlifters will use to, get grip on the bar. So I just thought that's weird in itself, but I'm wondering if it's something similar to that same substance, what they're leaving behind. Because if it is, I mean, there's some sort of connection with whatever's performing these mutilations, and then in Randy's case, or at least on his property, what they're leaving behind. And, whether these aliens or UFOs or mutilations are paranormal or supernatural or just something we can't understand. But I feel like if it's the same substance being left behind, there's some sort of relation between the two, or it's fallen under the same umbrella somehow in some way we don't understand yet.
Like I like to say it a lot, that the only difference between science and supernatural is just understanding. Animals that were mythical 100 years ago are in zoos now, and animals that we didn't understand superpowers of. I mean, we talk about on the show all the time, mantis shrimp and peacocks creating infrasound with their feathers, and
Right, yeah.
the electric stargazer, staring at fish until they die,
Yeah,
and nobody could figure out how they do it. And now they shoot laser beams out of their eyes.
right.
So
Stargazer is electric, isn't it? Like an electric eel?
yeah, but they have little pits in the corners of their eye that they produce their electricity from. And forever, scientists couldn't figure out how they were aiming it. And they literally have little muscles on it to aim it and kill stuff in front of them. So an electric eel's pulse, anybody ever sees electric eels, why their eyes are all cloudy and all that stuff, they're insulated. They have to be, because the amount of electricity they put off will kill themselves. Like when electric eel's mouth's open or whatever, when they do it, they'll just kill themselves. So if you look at the little white dots, those are actually the pores that let the electrical shock out of the basically muscles that act like batteries. The stargazer doesn't produce nearly as much power, but it makes up for it in being precise.
Accuracy.
Yeah, an electric eel just fries everything in its area. And a stargazer is pinpointing.
That's nuts. Yeah, nature's wild.
Yeah, and those are just animals that we didn't understand 50 years ago. They had supernatural powers. I mean, the stargazer was 20 years ago. Was still, scientists were arguing because these organs were so tiny in the corners of their eye that they couldn't find them forever.
Oh, and then today we're talking about a warm-blooded fish. What was that called again? An opa?
Opa.
Yeah. In the deep ocean.
The only warm-blooded fish that makes no sense.
Yeah. Just, yeah. So nature's weird already. And those are things we already know that do exist. So with Randy's case or just Bigfoot in general, these things could be supernatural or just something we just don't understand yet. And I don't know if we ever will, but hopefully we do.
I guess the thing I was getting at, just because they are supernatural does not mean they are not natural.
Right.
Because there's so much stuff that is natural that has super power. Blue whales talking, we're 1,000 miles away from each other. Elephants creating infrasound that causes humans stress and even suicide in some things.
Yeah, that's not a good one, but...
No, but it is. It's
But
byproducts. It's
right.
byproducts in
Yeah, I
nature
know.
and their effects on us.
Right. Yeah.
Have I don't know. Have you guys ever had or heard any of the scarier stories out of Randy's property? Has there ever been any pretty scary encounters?
Well, nobody's ever been hurt, and if they wanted to hurt somebody, I think they would have done it by now, but I guess it comes down to what different people are scared of.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had several times when I could tell that I was within 50 yards of one and I could hear it. And it hasn't really scared me. You'd think my heart would just be going 100 miles an hour, but it hasn't really happened. But there's other people, like I mentioned, have heard stuff outside their tent and been too scared to even open the door.
Right.
So,
So it's how you measure. It's relative to the experiencer,
Well, and like he said,
but no one's been
if they
hurt.
wanted to get you, they could get you. I'm a big believer in that.
100%, yes.
I seen one when I was 16. I have no need or want to ever see one again. I'm good. But I was terrified of it for years. Like, we wouldn't talk about it for years. And now, like you just said, looking back, if it wanted to get us as kids, it would have got us. It had, every opportunity, stronger, faster.
Especially when you saw it.
Yeah, we were 30 foot from it in the pitch black.
Yeah, and you were kids.
And we're kids. So I was terrified of it then, but looking back now, if it was going to grab us, it would have grabbed us.
Mm-hmm.
It had every opportunity. It just was looking at us. It was just looking, being probably just as curious as we could have been.
Right, yeah.
Randy has family members that are so scared of them that they refuse to go into the woods anymore. His wife, his stepdaughter, they've both seen them up on the road right at the beginning of the driveway. But I mean, Randy goes out there every day and talks to them. His stepson goes with him sometimes, and he just had his first sighting just recently too, this month, and he's definitely somewhat afraid of them. But yeah, Randy's wife and stepdaughter won't, when they're there, they won't set foot away from the yard. And they used to go out in the woods semi-regularly, but they're too scared to now.
I guess trust your gut. I mean,
There's
if you're scared, you're scared.
that feeling, I guess, humans have the false sense of security that we're apex predators until you're around an animal or a thing that surpasses you
Yes.
in every aspect. I mean, I've seen videos of people up in Michigan where we camp and stuff like that, yelling at mountain lions, just walking up and yelling at them like they're house cats.
Or those two little old ladies that were taking the pictures of the
With
bear.
the black bear, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, they were going to get killed. That would happen on me and my wife's 1 year wedding anniversary where we were down in Cades Cove, and they were like 5 feet from this bear taking pictures, and I'm like, I think you're too close. As we're leaving, because we didn't see him, he walked up to us, and she's like, oh, he's fine. Yeah, he lives here.
Yeah, he's fine.
You're not. Like, this is where he lives, and his mom is somewhere around here, and I don't want to run into her.
Right, not smart.
And then the park ranger, as we were getting out of there, was coming over the hill and just screaming at those ladies.
Yeah, not good.
There's big signs everywhere, 150 feet. There were probably 5. Me to the wall. I mean, it was, because I didn't see him because everybody was looking at mom out in the field, and nobody's looking at Junior that was 5 or 10 feet from us.
Right, yeah. So, Mike, you just wrote a new book.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like to share what that's about and tell us, I guess, about it?
It's called Bigfoot, the Minnesota Scene. Came out a few months ago. And most of it is interviews with all the other Bigfoot researchers in Minnesota, or at least the ones who were willing to take part. I took a couple of years to get all the interviews done. But then the final chapter, which is also the longest one, is just a continuation of the previous book and an update on Randy's case.
Oh, awesome. And
the interviews give a pretty balanced look at how people view the subject, I think, because some of them believe that it's paranormal and some absolutely refuse to. They think it's just flesh and blood. So it's a mixture of opinions out there.
absolutely there is. So that's good. It's nice to see, I guess, your evolution going from flesh and blood to, opening up the scope of what this thing is and getting other opinions on that.
It's been kind of a hard journey, but with Randy's case and the things that have happened, I really don't have a choice but to at least say that I'm on the fence now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be.
I think that's a big step, too, because we know, or we've met plenty of people that just will not just, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's flesh and blood, and the paranormal stuff, they just throw it out the window.
And we've met plenty on the opposite.
Yeah, the other way too.
And I've shared that, when I seen one, I mean, till we started doing this, even when we started doing this,
Right.
I was always flesh and blood.
And that plenty of people we know.
Like you're saying that you've been out in it too much. You've seen things, or you've talked to people that you trust, or are telling you the truth. And like, I never experienced any of the paranormal side of Sasquatch, but we've had so many people like Randy and other people, even close friends, that have had the more paranormal stuff that you can't ignore it.
There's too much to ignore.
Yeah, so I don't know. I always just say Bigfoot's a manatee and then leave it at that. Before I ask the question, what is the best way for people to buy your books?
Amazon.com is the easiest way.
And so everybody at home, I'll put the link for both books down below. And you're going to have books available at the Jamboree too, correct?
Yeah, I plan to.
Okay.
Awesome.
So if you want a signed copy, you get it at the Jamboree.
Right. And we'll have you set up right next to Randy at the Jamboree as well.
Yep. But I just want to know, I know it's a loaded question, and I don't think I have an answer to it either. But what is Bigfoot in your mind? Or what is one of the options, or any formats of that question?
That is a loaded question.
Mm-hmm. I know it is. It's
especially with what we were just talking about how I've had to change my views in a pretty dramatic fashion. What it is for sure is just something that does exist that people see. I've long since left that question behind. And if there's skeptics who think that's ridiculous and that there never has been a Bigfoot, never will be, they don't exist, well, I don't agree with those people, but it's okay for people to be wrong, because people are fallible and we make mistakes all the time. And I'm not going to dislike somebody who refuses to believe in it.
Right.
I've seen 2 of them now. I haven't had excellent views of either of them, but it's something that I saw, and thousands of other people have seen them. And I don't think it's right for skeptics or debunkers or just non-believers to accuse those people of either lying or being so stupid that they can't tell a tree stump from a Bigfoot, or of having psychotic hallucinations. I don't think a person should have to be afraid to talk about something they've seen for fear of being called a liar or an idiot or a maniac. And in the past several years, I've started to feel like that's who I'm doing this work for, are those witnesses who are afraid to talk about what they've seen. I don't think that's right. And Randy's one of them. I'm one of them. As to what Bigfoot actually is, that's still something I'm trying to figure out. But I just know that it is.
Yep. I think that's a great answer.
Yeah, it is.
Even if it is paranormal or supernatural, I think it should still be possible to prove that it exists.
Yes.
Yeah.
Randy says I'm wasting my time and that I can't prove it to the world. He says each individual just has to be able to prove it to themselves and let that be.
That's pretty deep.
I am still trying to prove it to the world. And Randy, he used to try and, make footprint casts and put up trail cameras and get as much evidence as he could, but he doesn't do that anymore.
Right.
He kind of discourages other people from trying to do it, but I'm still trying to do those things too. I do have some trail cameras up right now, not at his place, but in a national forest not too far away.
Yeah, and, it's so hard not to when you want to, what you're so passionate about, you want to share with everybody, and I guess at the end of the day, show them you are not crazy. It's real.
I think there is still value in putting up cameras, just because, why not try? You might not get anything.
It's not going to hurt.
Just make the effort. And maybe I'll get some good pictures of other animals. I've gotten a couple of mountain lion pictures before, and
awesome
bear and stuff like that. And so that's fun. Why not do it?
Right, yeah.
And there's always the remote chance that a Bigfoot might walk by in the meantime.
That would be sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm very insightful.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, that was about as best answer as anybody's given.
I think because that's about what I have fallen on saying too is I don't know what Bigfoot is, but I know the phenomena of Bigfoot exists, and that is real. The phenomena of Bigfoot is real. Whatever that phenomena is, I don't know yet, but it could be a multitude of things. But I know it's real.
See, I think I fall. I don't know with Bigfoot. I'm good. Like we've talked about this many times. I seen one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they are. I know they're real. Like I don't have the drive to go out and like I'll go to Randy's property with you and TJ's and all that, but I don't need any more questions answered for me.
You don't need to prove it to yourself anymore. You know.
Yeah. And yeah. And I don't know, that comes from working with endangered and cryptic species that I don't need to, I guess, prove it to anybody else because I know they're there.
Right, yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm crazy.
Well, no, I think there's something into it, kind of ties in what Randy says about you proved it to yourself and that's all you need.
Yeah. But then there's plenty of people we know that will collect every piece of evidence. And that's what you want to do, you do it.
If I have a hair, I'm showing people. I'm telling people.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. A toenail, I don't care.
A Bigfoot toenail.
Turd, whatever. I don't care.
You got that at the Georgia Bigfoot
somewhere.
Museum?
Glenn showed us.
Where it's like a foot and a half long turd.
Yeah, authentic, they say.
Authentic Bigfoot poop.
Yeah. If I got one, I'll show you. Not yet. I don't got one yet.
Okay. You have another question for him?
I did have one mention. I listened to an interview you talked about when you were still researching, but this was earlier in your career researching, you found tracks. And they were interesting tracks. And I want you to share that. Justin doesn't know about this,
I
but
don't know anything.
I thought it was interesting. They were different than most tracks. So can you share that experience of when you found tracks?
My first time finding tracks was way back in 1989 at a place called Vergas Trails. There's a kind of an urban legend of something that the local people call the hairy man of Vergas Trails, which is real close to where I grew up. And yeah, I was in my early Bigfooting days, and it was so close. I was like, well, I got to look into this. The story said that it was a human man that wanted to get away from civilization, so he went to live as a hermit in the woods, and over years he'd grown hair all over his body and become this wild man. But even as a kid, I knew that if a person just stops shaving and taking care of themselves, yeah, their head hair and their facial hair is going to grow, but it's not going to happen all over their body. It's just medically impossible. So it made me wonder if the sightings that I heard about of this thing might involve a Bigfoot instead of a wild human. So I just started searching the area. A lot of it is private property, and as a kid, just out of high school, I didn't really understand that. So I did do some inadvertent trespassing here and there, but
It's worth it.
It was when I was walking through a power line corridor that I found those first footprints, and they were 16 inches long and 3-toed. There was just a few of them. The ground it had a lot of grassy areas, and just once in a while there'd be a patch of dirt that the thing would step in and leave a track. And over time, I found 2 other sizes. I found a 20-inch track and a 12-inch track. And the 12-inch track was kind of bent like it was injured, and it only showed 2 toes. Like it had some kind of run-in with something or an accident where it got a pretty bad injury to that foot. So I thought, well, it looks like the hairy man has come up with a hairy family for himself.
Yeah.
Are those the tracks you were?
Yes, the 3 toes I thought were.
Yeah, the 3 toes. not unknown, but it's not common.
Right. I didn't know,
Hmm.
Justin, if you had any thoughts.
Might be a little more common in eastern states.
Southern. I know a lot of Louisiana ones are said to have 3 toes. Arkansas, I mean, some of the Boggy Creek tracks had 3 toes. And the thought always down there is stuff like everything from alligators to alligator snapping turtles to cottonmouths to
Yeah,
copperheads
Snake
to,
bite, yeah.
so just losing a toe here and there due to necrosis because there's so many venomous snakes. And when we were down there fishing and everything like that, we would pull up minnows and there'd be 4 or 5 copperheads in the net.
Did it look like 3 toes, like a injured foot 3 toes, or was it like evenly spread out like it was already originally made with 3 toes, I guess?
The best track that I saw looked like it was just naturally 3 toes.
Interesting.
That makes you think more polyodactyly.
Yeah, or if it's just something
Else?
Yeah, just something like a weird, those one-off weird creatures
Yeah.
like
Or
from the
was
rhino
it-
family.
Was it thin? The foot, was it long and thin or was it wide?
It was fairly wide. I don't remember the exact
Right.
measurement.
Because the dinosaur tracks up in Canada, 3-toed.
Mokele Mbembe's 3-toed, but
McKelly and Bimbe. Yeah.
but I got a 3-toed cast in there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That's from out west. It was evenly spaced, almost like a bird.
I was gonna say the Thunderbird one.
Yeah, but it looks like it has a heel and everything. They say it's a thunderbird. I don't think it is because it looks like it has a heel, and birds don't have those kind of. That's not how their foot morphology is designed.
Right.
But it's like a long. Yeah, it's
It's just since we've been doing this show, there's so many stories from around the world of just like these one-off creatures that seem like they're from a different time, like dinosaurs or like mega mammals, like out in the middle of nowhere, really, but leaving like strange tracks, like Mokele and Bimbe in the Congo.
we talk about time skips and maybe even interdimensional animals where they're not monsters. They're not, they're just an animal from somewhere else.
Yeah,
Like Crazy Critter of Bald Mountain is one.
the world's weird.
I mean, the world is.
Especially when you get in remote areas like national parks, and with the less people or the less there are people, the weirder like things turn up. Which, if I were to hide anywhere, it would be the furthest away from people I could possibly get, because that's the most dangerous thing on Earth.
People.
Yeah,
But yeah, it really makes me think of polyodactyly.
just like a genetic.
Yeah, and for everybody at home, reiterate polyodactyly. A lot of times, it's not the only way to have it. In mammals, it mostly occurs. It's a genetic disorder that can occur with inbreeding, and the more it's called straight line breeding, the more inbreeding there is, the worse and more prominent it becomes.
And that comes with extra or less fingers and toes.
But they'll be they can be fused together or there'll just be less of them.
Right.
But it doesn't have to necessarily be associated with inbreeding. But when you see it in a population, a lot of times that's
The cause.
the cause.
Yeah.
It's a symptom of that. So I've seen the thought that, we've done the episodes on times Bigfoot's been shot. You remember how many 16, 17, 1800 stories, how many Bigfoot were just shot. Some of them shot from horseback, trains, people just riding around. Every time they see one, they shot one. Mm-hmm. No wonder they hide now. And they don't, there are a few places like where you go out and they still connect with us in some way, shape, or form.
If that's even what's going on
Yeah.
here at Randy's property.
But I think that could be a sign that the genetic pool of a large migratory animal was dramatically reduced.
Bottlenecked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the 3-toed tracks and some of that stuff. Also, you mentioned the little one that looked bent. Have you ever seen the Cripplefoot cast?
Yeah, the Bossburg, Washington
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
Was it kinda like
very
that?
similar to that? A smaller version of it, yeah.
Yeah, because that cast
Not
is huge.
exactly, but
Yeah, but it's kind
it
of
did
similar.
remind me of that. And also, I said it had 2 toes. There was one on either side, and I couldn't tell how many were missing from the middle.
Okay.
They're just, broken foot.
Must have hit on a few couches.
Yeah, one too many corners. rock rolled over on it. One of those big Minnesota
Gosh.
snapping turtles.
Oh gosh, yeah.
There are dinosaurs up there.
They are 100%. I got one on video from last summer.
But no, I mean that's very fascinating, and the collecting of evidence is always good. I don't know. I don't know if I think we'll have answers. I think it is provable. I just think that it'll be in an unconventional way.
Well, I think that's already happened, I guess.
What?
I guess not captured, but I think there's been proven. I
think there's plenty of proof out there.
Yeah.
Sir David Attenborough just did his last documentary of his life, and he just did an interview talking about Bigfoot.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd he say?
He believes.
Yeah.
He's like, same thing we've all been sitting around here talking tonight, that there's too many sightings. There are too many people from all walks of life. And it's a whole world phenomenon if you count like the Yowie and then some of the Mapinguari of South America and all that stuff. But it's the northern hemisphere.
The Alma.
In Russia. But it's the northern hemisphere phenomena. And he was mentioning other animals like steppe bison and mastodons and mammoths. It matches a lot of the Bigfoot maps for a megafaunal northern hemisphere species. So that's what he believes, he believes Bigfoot's real, whatever Bigfoot is.
Right. The phenomena of Bigfoot.
Which is very interesting to hear, a world-renowned naturalist devoted his life.
That's been around that long and in the public eye that long.
80 years he's been in, because he's 90, late 90s. But he's been doing nature documentaries and stuff for 80 years.
Jeez. Yeah.
Longer than a lot of people live to be. He's been doing this stuff.
Gosh.
Jane Goodall,
Yeah.
the chimpanzee expert, says the same thing. She's a believer too.
So
Prominent people.
see, that's proof to some and, not enough for others. There are just some people that will never be satisfied until there's one laying on a slab that they can go poke and prod. And, the Area X group, we talk about that sometimes, where I think it's Texas. I think it's out by Big Thicket. I may be getting groups mixed up in my head, but they're a firm believer.
I think it's Oklahoma, actually, Area X.
Oklahoma, thank you. But that group is a big believer, and you need to kill one to save the species, right? To prove they exist, so they get legal protections. Well, a lot of them are retired Army, Navy guys. The one guy was a high-level, Army sniper, and he said he had one. He was all for, you got to kill one just to prove they exist. He had one in the crosshairs, and he couldn't do it, and then he left the group. Just said it, looked at him, and he's like, it was like looking at a person.
Right.
He's like, I'm just not going to go out and shoot some person.
Right.
And
just because.
Yeah. So everybody has to just, I guess, find their level of proof. I think they'll be fine. That's one of the push that people get is for legal protections. For forestry habitats and that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you, coming from that field, it's an uphill battle, no matter what the species is.
Gosh, yeah. Doesn't matter.
I mean, they're literally bulldozing gopher tortoises back into their dens in Florida.
Literally.
They are. They're trapping these federally listed tortoises.
Under concrete.
Yeah. But do you have anything else?
I do have. I want to know your thoughts, though, on with Randy's property specifically. I don't know. I've never been there, so I can't officially say, but I guess from where I'm sitting now and my thoughts on it, I don't know what exactly he has on his property, and I don't even know if it's necessarily a Bigfoot, the flesh and blood kind. But I think it might be something more like elemental or something more, I guess, like that is strictly supernatural, something more spiritual that's tied to his land that may present itself in the Bigfoot form. And I kind of, for example, when you said you reached out and tried to touch its hands on the thing and there was nothing there, you may have touched it, but there was nothing there to physically touch.
Yeah, I couldn't really tell.
Again, I don't know. Never being there.
As far as it being something elemental, that's interesting because there have been psychics that have visited the property and have talked about there being what are called nature spirits or elementals that are common. They're just part of the land or the water or the wind or whatever, and we usually don't notice them. But there's some of the stuff that's going on Randy's property. It's stuff like he puts out little trinkets to attract the Bigfoots, and he finds them like every day. He finds them rearranged. Psychics think it's actually these nature spirits that are doing that because they're more hyperactive than usual on that property because of the Bigfoots being there.
Like they're a boost.
They say the Bigfoots are from another world and they're not supposed to be here. And the nature spirits, whose job is to protect nature, have just been stirred up, and they're doing things that people can notice.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting idea.
I definitely just know that property is special.
And there are people who have seen, orbs or even little what have been called fairies, almost like Tinkerbell from Peter Pan. People
Right.
have seen those.
It's just wild. We got to get up there at some point.
This is one of the only places I would go out for Bigfoot. This is the first time I've got to talk to you, but the longtime listeners know I am good. Like, I don't need any more paranormal stuff in my life.
Especially paranormal, yeah.
Because I believe it. Like, if you come and tell me that you see a shadow person, I believe you. I don't need to see it. I don't.
You've been pinched by one.
Yeah, I've been touched by one. I'm good, but I'd go out.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
We're going to tent camp.
Oh, for sure.
I think if I had, like, Mike's encounter with
Face to
face, that may make me feel better. Because it was so scary as a kid. And I don't think it was that scary, but in my head.
Well, yeah, 13, whatever.
I was 16.
16-year-old kid, yeah.
But I weighed 100 pounds, and this thing was 7.5 foot tall.
Right, it's scary.
And I would like to see if it was something like that. Like Mike said, if it wanted to grab you, it would have grabbed you, right? There would have been nothing you could have done. And you'd have just Sorry, go ahead.
When they pounded on Randy's house, when him and his family are in there, that's scary when it happens, but they could come right through that wall if they wanted to.
Right.
Oh, yes.
It's fun for them in some way, shape, or form. It's not the danger, or they're not doing it to kill you.
Right. Yeah.
Because if they wanted to be inside, they would just go right through.
You're right. Crush the whole thing like a tin can if they wanted. I'm sure.
But do you have anything else?
Well, I'm definitely excited to see you at the Jamboree this year. We're very pumped for that. And I'm excited to get your books there and have them available for people. I'm just really pumped about having you guys at the Jamboree, because just bringing the credibility and authenticity to our community, and because there's just so many people around here that I talk to on regularly that still are just, this doesn't exist. I hunt every year. I'm out there all the time, and I've never seen anything that's impossible. Like, I keep telling them, just come to the Jamboree. Just come to the Jamboree and just talk to people there and just get different experiences, and then tell me what you think after that. So I'm so excited to have people like you and Randy that are going to be attending there to, I guess, meet our community and for our community to meet you. That's exciting for me.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
But I wasn't 100% committed to coming until after my sighting. As soon as I told Randy about it, he said, "Well, now you got to come to Ohio."
I could see Randy definitely has a force to him.
Oh, I'm 100%.
If he's, I could just see him telling me to go somewhere, and I'd probably do it.
Oh yeah,
like it's just what it is.
He does. He captivates, or he draws people to him.
Yeah, captivation's the right.
And he captivates you. Yeah, he's just a very good talker, and I just think because he's real, he's authentic.
Same with you, and then
And he's a musician, so he's an entertainer, and he has that quality to him.
Yep.
a performer.
And then it comes naturally.
We've had a blast having you on. We're looking forward to having you at the Jamboree. Once again, everybody at home, if you get his books at the Jamboree, if you want to get him earlier, or if you're not coming to the Jamboree, Amazon's the best way. I'll have the links for both books below.
In the description
in
below.
the description. So all you got to do is click on the link and add them to your shopping cart.
Right, yeah.
Make
great Christmas presents for your friends and family.
We want to say thank you for coming on. We're looking forward to seeing you here in a couple months. Now, we have a little bit of a tradition how we like to end these episodes. I'm going to count backwards from 3, and we'll all yell bye, and then the outro music will play. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All righty.
3, 2, 1.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, thank you for listening to Cryptids the Corn podcast. Remember, the best way to support the show is share it with a friend. But if you are craving more of the J clones
And more from Mr. E.
there's always extra content on Patreon.
And our paid member space on cryptidsofthecorn.com.
We'll catch you next time with more exciting, fun, and informative information. Bye.